Bobby Kotick's reign of Activision ends in a few months. Xbox finally owns Activision Blizzard. Jim Ryan is quote-unquote set to retire in 2024. Unity CEO John Riccitiello quits. Bethesda VP Pete Hines retires. Respawn's Star Wars Jedi game director jumps ship. Saints Row devs Volition is no more. Disney eyes EA. Skull and Bones continues getting delayed, and still no GTA 6 reveal. The last couple of weeks of this video game industry has been quite lively, including some absolute banger releases. To say at the very least, a lot to discuss. Perhaps one of the games in the Game of the Year conversation is already mapping out the future. Lies of P's game director has confirmed their plans of a sequel, while also teasing the game's upcoming DLC, which is their immediate focus. Speaking of Souls-like games, FromSoft has provided us finally with an update on Elden Ring's upcoming Shadow of the Erdtree expansion, simply stating that development is proceeding forward smoothly. I personally think at the Game Awards next month we'll get our first look at what FromSoft has been cooking. The latest game publisher to come out against modding is Capcom, as they recently came out with a video warning developers of the potential reputation damage caused by malicious mods. There are a number of mods that are offensive to public order and morals, and said that for the purposes of its engine's anti-cheat tech, all mods are defined as cheats except when they are officially supported. This seemingly is an indirect response to a nude Chun-Li mod that caused controversy when at a Street Fighter tournament a few months ago, the game's host accidentally had the mod enabled. What has long been considered vaporware, Star Citizen received a shocking update of sorts for its Squadron 42 campaign, which apparently is now feature complete and entering the polish phase after 11 years of development. I'm still not sure I believe it, but seeing the $600 million game finally deliver on its single-player campaign featuring the likes of Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, Gary Oldman, and Andy Serkis, it would be nice. CD Projekt Red is preparing for their post-Cyberpunk 2077 future, and the more immediate future that is a new Witcher game, but they also are starting to craft the next Cyberpunk game, and recently a narrative director spoke on wanting to replicate the evolution of the Witcher franchise. Consider the Witcher games and how much they changed with each installment. We want a similar evolution here. Cyberpunk 2077 was our first venture in a futuristic sci-fi world with a ton of new gameplay mechanics, narrative tone, themes, and art direction. Some of the stuff worked almost right out of the box. Other aspects took more time to get right. Now with all the game elements iterated and working well, we'll focus on connecting them even tighter and creating a coherent, total immersion experience. My personal hope is that they lean into the role-playing side on the narrative front, as this specific area is what a lot of people felt disappointed by and wanted more from it. Still, we're probably 5 or so years out from a revisit to this world, with CDPR right now debating on if first person will once again be the perspective for this sequel. Hopefully though, CDPR uses those lessons learned to deliver a follow-up experience that has a clearer marketing campaign and a non-controversial launch. At one point, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was one of the most highly anticipated RPGs on the way, and then development became a hellish mess, with the original development team being removed and a new team being brought in to finish it. Now a couple of years later, we're starting to see more gameplay, and impressions are extremely negative, as many felt this original vision for this sequel was closer to the original game, while this new version from this new team has Fallout 4-esque dialogue, a voice protagonist, and a seemingly more limited scope. We'll see what happens with this game set to launch next year, but right now there's clear dissatisfaction with the direction that this game has taken. Grand Theft Auto 6 is the most highly anticipated game ever, and we still really don't have a great idea on when it's coming. Some developers have stated they believe 2025, while Take-Two has indicated it might come next year, but one thing is clear: we are nearing a new age at Rockstar Games, one that does come with a level of uncertainty in terms of what to expect with its content. The senior writing team of Red Dead Redemption 2 is mostly departed from the company, and the edgy tone of prior entries appears to be a thing of the past, and right now many just want to see something in an official capacity. There have been various fake leaks as of recently, and a lot of speculation that, like Red Dead 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5, this new game would be announced in October. That did not happen, and the GTA community showed their anger with the continuing silence by mass downvoting Rockstar's recent Grand Theft Auto Online video, while also taking to their Twitter posts to demand some form of communication from them. Regardless, none of this matters. Rockstar will announce when they feel comfortable. And in the next day or so, I will touch more on this in a new latest news and info video on GTA 6, so look out for that. Out of any game publisher, I do have to say that Bethesda has had the most interesting 2023. I say that because they started off the year with a surprise release with Hi-Fi Rush coming from Tango Gameworks, right there in that Game of the Year conversation, to be honest. Then it was Redfall, an absolute train wreck from Arcane. And then obviously BGS delivered Starfield, and say what you will about it, generated a lot of hype, made a lot of money for Xbox, and it still is one of the most played games on Game Pass. Now, as of late, there has been some interesting revelations. A former designer said that the company thought it was infallible before Fallout 76's launch. There was nothing we couldn't do. Just an interesting thing to say because of the fact that there was a lot of signs of trouble long before Fallout 76 came about, especially with their game engine. And then what's really interesting is that while Starfield has been this mega hit, it does seem like the feeling surrounding this game has been very negative or very mixed. Right now on Steam, Starfield actually has a lower rating than Fallout 76. I believe it stands at around 70% for Starfield, and then Fallout 76 has a 73%. Just very wild, to be honest, because I do think Starfield is a better game than Fallout 76, but I do think a lot of people were extremely disappointed by Starfield. We did see, again, a former developer at Bethesda, a former lead designer, talking about BGS and Baldur's Gate 3. He talked about the differences between the companies, and I thought this was very striking. He said that the thing that at Bethesda we could never get ourselves to do is that they, Larian, poked into all of the darkest corners. They've come out and said quite bluntly, we don't care if only 1% of the players will ever see this. Those 1% that do are going to be happy, and they will tell the other 99% who will then be happy that the option existed. At Bethesda, the games we were making were so big we had to make the approach of, well, everybody's got to be able to do this at some point. We can't lock off content that way. And I just feel like that is kind of an indictment on their game design in some regards. I know some people may think that's overblown, but I really do think that Bethesda has to change things up for the Elder Scrolls 6, in which there's just so much anticipation for that. And then there's definitely a lot of concern after what we've seen in their last couple of entries. And Starfield, I think, reignited some of those concerns even more. Now, it is worth mentioning that Bethesda as a whole, there's a lot of question marks surrounding the future direction of many of their game developers, especially Arcane, who is apparently going to be seeking a redemption arc for Redfall. The problem with Redfall is that there's very few redeeming qualities. When you look to No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077, who had these huge comebacks, there were good aspects of those games from the get-go. Redfall is just abysmal, in my opinion, almost every single regard, and it seems like a waste of time when Arcane really could be focusing their attention on games that people actually are excited for, such as a new Dishonored or a new Prey game. Say what you will about Microsoft and their hands-off approach with Redfall, they are changing things up, and it does make me wonder, with Pete Hines' recent departure from the company, retiring, does make it sound like his position was about to be made redundant, because the autonomy that Bethesda has enjoyed, it seems to be kind of over. As this PC Gamer article says, after 3 years of hands-off management, Microsoft is making Bethesda and ZeniMax report directly to an Xbox bigwig. So it definitely seems like there is a huge change-up with how this company is now going to be operating into the future. Hopefully that ensures some better quality control, because games like The Elder Scrolls 6, Bethesda and Xbox just have to deliver. Silent Hill has been MIA for about a decade now, and maybe it really should have stayed that way. Not too long ago, Konami announced a bunch of new Silent Hill projects, which got a lot of Silent Hill fans excited. There was some new Silent Hill games on the way, such as a Silent Hill 2 remake, Silent Hill Ascension, which is a free-to-play interactive story of sorts on mobile devices. There was also a couple of other things like a movie on the way, but Silent Hill Ascension has released on mobile devices, and it's going as well as you thought it would. Looking at these Google reviews, it has a 1.5 out of 5 stars, and it's being blasted with how horrible it is. It's actually even pay to win. I don't even know how you make something like this pay to win, but as soon as you load it up for the first time, you get hit with a founders pack in which you can buy stickers, emojis, and frames, and you can design your character. Again, this is just an interactive story in which you can decide choices with in-game currency, which you can earn by doing puzzles and some other random activities, or you can just cough up a bunch of cash. And as you might expect, the people who have been coughing up cash are those who are deciding where the story goes, I suppose, because again, this is pay to win. We have articles like this coming from Eurogamer in which the developers are defending their horrendous monetization. Again, this also has a season pass. I don't even know, it does not make any sense at all what they were thinking with this. They say the monetization is a time skip, it's not pay to win. The CEO of the developer Genvid had defended the game's microtransactions and said they were there to allow people to skip time in gaming or gaining in-game currency rather than being a way to game the system. It would be very difficult for a single person to change a decision. Players can cast their decisions by using the game's currency influence points. One decision costs 200 points, and currently the options have millions of points behind each one. The currency packs, which range from 6,000 to 26,000 points, won't give anyone who buys them any pay-to-win influence, the CEO said. Each pack can presumably be bought multiple times, however, as there's no limitations mentioned on the game's store page. It's worth remembering that time skips are a common method of predatory monetization in mobile games. And given that some puzzles are locked behind the $20 season pass, the CEO admitted that the company went too aggressive on puzzle locks. And as you can see within some of these choices, you can actually see some of the names behind them who have contributed the most influence points, and it has reached upwards of around 50 or so thousand, so that indicates that people are in fact buying these packs, and yes, they're definitely impacting where this story is going. And again, this story is not very good. I've downloaded this myself. I played it for like a 5 to 10 minutes, as you can see in some of the background footage. It is really as bad as it gets. It is poorly done. The cutscenes look like something from the PS2, PS3 era. The story isn't at all very interesting. Everything looks very convoluted, and it just makes me very disappointed. As somebody who loved those earlier Silent Hill games, this is the way it's coming back. It's just shows you can never trust Konami. And it does appear that the developers did not have any form of chat moderation when this launched, so some very unhinged things were typed into the chat. Obviously, you already see the tons of stickers that are all over the screen. Just a very ugly presentation for this interactive TV show, which has some quick time events and then decisions that you have to make. It's actually not a horrendous idea, but it has been executed terribly. And to be fair, Silent Hill just deserves so much better. And we could have had that years ago with Silent Hills, but unfortunately those days are long behind. Xbox has a lot of work to do with Activision and Blizzard, two companies that have been crumbling for a long time. There's been a lot of bleeding in terms of talent the last couple of years, especially at Blizzard. But just the other day, we did have BlizzCon 2023. There was a number of announcements, a couple of new expansions announced for World of Warcraft, some of which being announced by the World of Warcraft legend Chris Metzen, who recently rejoined the company. I believe he's serving as an executive producer on these expansions. We also had some other announcements, one of which being for Overwatch 2, a new hero was announced. And then in 2024, there's plans for 3 new heroes and some other stuff on the way, such as a new PvP mode. Diablo 4 also got its first expansion announced, and I will say that in the World of Warcraft front, with those expansions, the one thing Blizzard does do very, very well are those cinematics. That's the one nice thing I can say about this company. Their cinematics are absolutely stunning. It was also very notable that Phil Spencer showed up during BlizzCon 2023 during the opening ceremony. He didn't really say anything of substance. It was more so that he said he wants to empower our new colleagues in a culture of trust, inclusion, and collaboration. Pretty much Blizzard, Xbox, they're beginning to start that integration phase. That's going to take time. We'll see what happens in regards to the quality of the content in the future, because again, the Blizzard of old is not the Blizzard of current day. And Blizzard, yes, they have been in some controversy as of late, especially in terms of their microtransactions. We had this controversy. Blizzard feels hellish heat as fans complain about Overwatch 2 Lilith's skin locked behind hefty price tag. This was, I believe, earlier in the month or back in October, in which Lilith, Diablo's demonic queen, is now in Overwatch 2. The studio made a big deal out of Lilith's arrival as part of its promos for Season 7, Rise of Darkness. But you see, it turns out this Lilith skin is only available through an Ultimate Battle Pass bundle, and that bundle doesn't exactly come cheap. It's about $40, which is just an insane amount for cosmetic microtransactions like this, and obviously, much of the Overwatch community was extremely outraged by this. But that is not the only recent Blizzard news. news, as Blizzard just launched their first new RTS in ages, as this PC Gamer article outlines. The legendary RTS developer, which is easy to forget in 2023, along with Westwood, it effectively built the genre. Aside from a rather poor remaster of Warcraft 3 back in 2020, it seems to have no interest in making this kind of game that put the studio on the map. StarCraft 2, its last big RTS push, launched in 2010, and obviously Blizzard ditched that a couple of years ago. And then, as this PC Gamer writer says, I should be giddy then that a new Blizzard RTS appeared last night, and no, because that's Warcraft Rumble, a free-to-play mobile game with microtransactions, which distills the RTS formula down to something you can play with your finger. And yes, this is a watered-down version of an RTS, and a lot of people are having difficulty even calling it an RTS, but I have heard positive impressions of this new mobile experience from Blizzard, and Blizzard already has announced, I believe a long time ago, that Warcraft Rumble would never be coming to PC, so this is definitely a do you have phones moment of sorts, but this is Blizzard as of now. They are a microtransaction, mobile-focused company in many regards. Obviously, they're not ignoring their PC roots. They still are on that front, but I think mobile is really going to become a focus with them in the future. And it's definitely not like Microsoft's going to stop this, as they've had their own issues with microtransactions as of late, especially in regards to Halo Infinite, as developer 343 has been having to explain some of the recent microtransaction shop price hikes, and 343 said this isn't necessarily what everyone wants to hear, which is definitely not something you want to hear coming from a game developer in terms of monetization. But I don't think the monetization issues are going to be something that goes away with Blizzard and really all of Xbox in the future, as Microsoft definitely seems like they're going to double down on this front. And actually, as of recording this video, there's already been some outrage surrounding World of Warcraft's The War Within, which has a $90 early access pre-order bundle. And yeah, if you pay up for the Epic Edition, you get 3 days early access to The War Within. This is becoming a new standard within this industry, in which developers, publishers are kind of locking games behind a so-called early access period. And while this is somewhat like FOMO with Starfield and Forza Motorsport single-player experiences for the large part, a little different with a game that has a competitive element to it, like World of Warcraft. It might be a small advantage that players are getting, but it definitely is an advantage, and something that a lot of players are very upset about, and I think it's extremely understandable. And unfortunately, I think it's only going to continue into the future. It's definitely one way to get players to spend an extra $10, $20, $30, or $40, $50 on a game. Now, while Blizzard has been in the news, on the other side of the company, Activision has also been in the news for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, but unfortunately it's everything that they probably didn't want to have happen, because well, Modern Warfare 3 back I think around 2012, 2013, the original one came out, that was a very memorable experience. I still remember that logo change from Modern Warfare 3 to World War 3, just a very iconic experience, a lot of memories made with the multiplayer, and I thought the campaign was pretty good, but this current iteration isn't very good. I played the 3 to 4 hour campaign. It just feels extremely rushed. There's just so much recycling of Warzone assets, so many Modern Warfare 2 weapons. It literally feels like glorified DLC, and that is literally exactly what it is. Actually, players have been finding that they're getting errors. It keeps asking players for Modern Warfare 2 discs when they play Modern Warfare 3. There's actually not even a platinum trophy for Modern Warfare 3, because it literally is like DLC for Modern Warfare 2. But Microsoft and Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, they are going all out with having advertisements, some intrusive ones on the Xbox, which is leaving some gamers very upset about that. It is worth mentioning that the size of this experience is just, it really does make you question the decision making happening behind the scenes. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they cannot condense these games down enough. I don't think they're really trying, because Modern Warfare 3 hogs up around 213 gigabytes of storage space if you install everything. Now you gotta understand, to have Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, and then Modern Warfare 2 installed, the multiplayer and such, I think some players have said like on their PlayStation it's around 600 gigabytes. You gotta remember that these consoles only have like around 950 or so gigabytes of space, unless you get some other storage space extenders and stuff like that, but most players don't have that. And I do feel like it's a strategy to have these games hog up so much space, so players just decide not to bother with other experiences because they already have Call of Duty installed. But regardless of that, as some have also pointed out, you can't launch Modern Warfare 3 without first launching Modern Warfare 2. As PC Gamer outlines, before you launch MW3, you have to launch Modern Warfare 2 first. Seriously, Call of Duty HQ is just the Modern Warfare 2 / Warzone client under a new name. And then even after that, there's a lot of complicated updates and stuff. It's just an absolute mess of an experience right now, which it doesn't really matter because Modern Warfare 3 is going to go on to sell big. But we did see this, IGN giving the game a 4 out of 10. It's probably going to be one of the worst reviewed Call of Duty experiences ever, I think, and it really deserves it with how bad it is. This user pointing out 4 out of 10 from IGN, reused assets from Warzone and Campaign, 3 hours long recycled multiplayer from Modern Warfare 2, the original one, and the recent Modern Warfare 2. It's listed as a DLC for Modern Warfare 2 from last year on PlayStation, $70. This is what Xbox paid for, $69 billion. They have quite the mess on their hands and they have to fix it. And my big hope long term for this Call of Duty franchise is that we slow down on these yearly releases, give the developers some time, because Modern Warfare 3 really shouldn't have been here. And it's quite clear the developers rushed this out as fast as they could, and all it's led to is extreme disappointment and a lot of question marks about the future of this franchise, to be honest. For the first time in what feels like the last decade or so, Sony, there are a lot of questions surrounding their future. They do some things extremely brilliantly. Their single-player story-focused experiences, they are still top-notch. God of War Ragnarok was up for tons of Game of the Year awards last year. Spider-Man 2 is probably going to get showered in those awards this year, and there's still some exciting titles on the way, such as Ghost of Tsushima 2, whenever that is announced. Obviously, we're still waiting, and it's in development, and I'm sure Naughty Dog, there's going to be tons of excitement for their future Last of Us projects. But the one big thing that a lot of people are questioning is everything outside of that. A lot of their technology that they've delivered as of late have not really delivered that the way that they hoped for. PSVR has not panned out that well. The PlayStation Portal remote player had a lot of excitement behind it at first because a lot of people thought that this was Sony returning to having a handheld system, but no, it's just something that you connect to your PS5 console and you can use around the house. It really is. I don't understand the decision making behind that. Sony has also been under fire for other questionable things, such as people have been looking at their software license agreement, in which Sony apparently has it that you must install or have installed the most current version of system software as soon as you reasonably can. If not, Sony can brick your system. Apparently that is a real thing in their terms of service. I genuinely don't understand. Just crazy stuff. But on the executive level, obviously Jim Ryan has left the company. He has retired. That's the official explanation they're going for. And then also another major exit was Connie Booth. She was a executive at SIE. She oversaw the production of series such as Crash Bandicoot, Marvel Spider-Man, and Uncharted, and now she has left the company. But the big question mark seems to be Sony's pivot to live services. This is an area where they want to make it work. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of news reports indicating that the Last of Us spin-off project has been an absolute mess. Recently, the director of the Last of Us multiplayer project came out with a statement saying, yes, the project is still alive. After, again, numerous reports indicated that this project was nearly on ice, it was falling apart, and Bungie months ago had given a thumbs down on it. This is a news report coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, which outlines following the announcement of PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan's departure in 2024, reports have emerged that Sony's game studios are struggling with the company's pivot to live service. Amid the success of PS5, PlayStation shift towards live service has been an uncomfortable pivot for some first-party studios, and that's, because a lot of them are experienced in single-player story-focused experiences. We've seen other developers such as BioWare, Bethesda make this jump, and it just has not worked out, and numerous Square Enix studios. Everybody wants that live service money, but they don't understand the investment and the expertise needed to make this work, and of course, there is an element of luck that plays a factor into this. 3 major Sony studios, Guerrilla Games, Naughty Dog, and Insomniac, are working live service projects, some of which have reportedly been canceled or overhauled. Sony made the high-profile acquisition of Bungie, Bungie and made no secret of its desire to use the studio's expertise in the live service arena. However, insiders are skeptical of the move and have expressed concerns about the lack of a coherent vision within PlayStation. One thing that needs to be said about Bungie, they are also falling apart. The company that is supposed to be kind of like their leading voice in terms of live service. This is the big news report that came the other day. Bungie blames 100 layoffs on players leaving Destiny 2. The studio cut 8% of its staff after taking a 45% hit to revenue. Now, within this layoff announcement, it was also mentioned that Bungie is delaying the upcoming Destiny 2 expansion, The Final Shape, and their upcoming return to the franchise Marathon. It's unclear when that specific game is coming, as there's no dates for any of this right now. Although Bungie has stated that they want their upcoming expansion for The Final Shape for Destiny 2 to be on par with Forsaken and The Taken King, which are considered some of the best expansions of the game, and some players are feeling a little uncomfortable about Bungie making these sky-high expectations just because of the fact that they're putting pressure on themselves at a time when they really should not be. Now, it is worth mentioning that Bungie's CEO again has blamed the layoffs on waning interest in Destiny 2. Sources speaking to IGN said that the chief executive told those who retained their jobs at Bungie that the right people had been kept on. Bungie also apparently took responsibility for the layoffs, indicating that the parent company, Sony, did not push the studio to downscale. So the problems happening at Bungie seems to be on Bungie. Elaborating on the struggles facing Destiny 2, Parsons said the upcoming expansion, The Final Shape, has delivered lower than expected pre-orders. And furthermore, why a lot of people that work at Bungie are extremely upset with the company is because assurances were seemingly made to staff concerned about job security following Sony's acquisition of Bungie in March 2022. One former Bungie worker told IGN they were repeatedly told there would be no layoffs because $1.2 billion of the $3.6 billion Sony paid to acquire Bungie would be used to retain staff. But around a year and a half later, it looks like all of that has fallen apart. Now, further details have been revealed by Forbes' Paul Tassi, who has sources within Bungie, and this is what he had to say. Internally, really no one is blaming Sony for this, even management. Some employees were told that if the Sony buyout did not happen, that with current Destiny performance, the studio itself would have been in jeopardy if they were still independent. Which, say what you will, but Bungie is under Sony. This is their responsibility to get right. This is their leading live service studio, and right now they are crumbling just as their live service ambitions are crumbling. Now, furthermore, within this report coming from Forbes' Paul Tassi, it's mentioned that there have been many meetings about microtransactions where many developers wanted to reduce them, but they were always given the reply that they are necessary given how expensive Destiny is to operate, and complaints about new ones don't always reflect reality. Event cards may seem lame but sell well, for instance, or you'd be surprised how many people are still buying the oldest expansions that we always say should be free by now. And just to understand, this is how you get into Destiny 2, by spending like $600. There is no bundle of having all this stuff together. It's $600 to get the full Destiny 2 experience, starting with all the packs, all the expansions. It's really a horrendous system of getting new players integrated into Destiny 2, and it really shows dysfunction that's been happening at the top level of Bungie. And again, say what you will, say what you want, but this all falls on Sony, as they have to get this right, especially as they're looking to Bungie for their input with games like the Last of Us multiplayer project. And the fact that Bungie can't even get themselves right, it really shows just massive issues that need to be solved sooner rather than later. Now, amidst all of this chaos surrounding the recent layoffs, Bungie did release an official statement to their community saying, "We know we have lost a lot of your trust," and they also should be making this statement to their own developers and workers. But the studio also said again that they're committed to exceeding expectations with the Final Shape expansion, but there is still no word of a delay or at all a release date for when this is coming. Same can be said for Marathon, their upcoming highly anticipated game. Again, I will reiterate that Bungie and Sony have a lot of work to do to getting things right, because right now it just seems like an absolute mess with the direction of this company and their live service vision. Anyway, as 2023 has been a hectic year in terms of game development with a lot of studios falling apart, we've also seen a lot of great games. Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2 are the most recent examples of a year that's probably going to go down as one of the best ever in terms of the amount of games that really could be considered in that Game of the Year conversation. But what are you playing? Let me know down in the comment section below, and thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Leave your thoughts on the topics that we discussed down in the comment section below, and consider subscribing for more videos like this. and I'll see you later.